Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, October 6, 2015, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street in Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business that may properly come before the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Friday, October 2nd, 2015, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, the Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap Into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, could we do a roll call?
Rich Matasek.
Here.
Lucy Biegler.
Here.
Mark Friedman. Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Chris Langhart.
Here.
Ginny Lights.
Here.
Gretchen Olick.
Here.
Peggy Oster.
Here.
Mitch Slater.
Here.
All right, if you would join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. Peggy, anything down your end?
I do have an announcement from Westfield High School. Congratulations to Westfield High School's student-run newspaper, Pi's Eye, on earning the Gold Medalist Award from the Columbia Scholastic Press Association. Both the hard copy edition of the weekly Pi's Eye and the website version were praised for their quality during the 2014-15 school year. The judges wrote, "The paper has very good writing in the journalistic style. The writers have strong research and interviewing techniques. The quotes reflect multiple sources interviewed, and the transitions flow smoothly. This is a definite strength." Winning the gold medalist level as a hybrid newspaper/website program, the judges also highly rated the news website, citing the use of multimedia components such as video, letters to editor, and slideshows. As Board of Education members, we applaud the consistent achievements of the Pi's Eye and applaud the student staff as well as the advisors Warren Hines, Nicole Scimoni, and recently retired teacher Rosemary DiBattista. Congratulations.
Okay, and families with children in grades K to 12 are invited to attend a free lecture organized by the Westfield Gifted Ed PTC on Wednesday, October 14th from 7 to 8:30 at the Westfield High School. Cafeteria B. Dr. Bash, a child psychologist who specializes in working with gifted children, will speak on the emotional needs of gifted children and give suggestions for addressing their needs. Admission to Westfield's gifted program is not a prerequisite to attend this event. While parents attend the lecture, students will have the opportunity to try stress management techniques. For more information, contact Amisha Mehta, Amisha, AMODY, at yahoo.com, or Charlotte Lee, CFLE4 at verizon.net.
Thank you.
The Westfield Rotary is sponsoring its used bike drive on Saturday, October 24th from 9 a.m. to noon here at the Board of Education building. The adult and children's bicycles will be sent to Nicaragua, Ghana, Albania, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. For more information, call Warren Rodin at 232-6807.
Thank you. Chris?
Nothing for me.
Mitch?
Nope.
Ginny?
Yep.
Gretchen?
Yes, Westfield Public Schools and offices will be closed Monday, October 12th in commemoration of Columbus Day.
All right. Yay. All right. The next meeting of the Westfield Board of Education will be held on Tuesday, October 20th at 7:30 p.m. The agenda will be posted on Friday, October 16th on the Board of Education's website. With that, I would recognize the public for agenda items only. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, we'll go to the superintendent's report. Dr. Dolan?
Thank you. For the superintendent's report tonight, actually there are a few different required reports that the state calls for, and so I'll be doing a review of a few different reports that are required. Let me start with one that actually takes place this week, and that is the state-required Week of Respect in all public schools in New Jersey. And that is being thought about and worked on this particular week. And as we talk about the Week of Respect, we try to emphasize this no matter whether we're talking to our youngest children or our oldest children, and we try to focus on respect for self, respect for others, and also respect for community. Again, that's defined a little differently whether you're talking to a 5-year-old or an 18-year-old, but the concepts truly are very similar. During this week, we try to focus on respect in a number of different ways. Some of those ways are different classroom readings and discussions, lessons taught by counselors, and also morning announcements which focus on various aspects of respect, various quotes that we hope are motivating, and also just stories told in public announcements at some levels. I want to share with you some of the examples of what's being done. I have a whole packet of everything that's being done, but I won't go through all that. I have just a few examples. I'll start with just 3 from the high school. So, for example, in some sophomore English classes, the students are reading Lord of the Flies, and the teacher is making a connection between that and cyberbullying. Whereas in Latin class, one where you'd think, well, how would you possibly combine Latin with the Week of Respect? Well, the way they're doing it is they're taking some quotes, some Latin quotes that are over 2,000 years old, but amazingly or not, they refer to topics such as bullying or power or anger, or arguments, cruelty, or happiness, peace, or fear. So the quotes are being given to the students who are going to translate them and then reflect on them and then see how these quotes made over 2,000 years ago are still applicable in our day. There are other examples I could give that have to do with what the teachers are doing in Spanish classes, in art classes, French classes, science classes, and social studies classes. But again, I have a whole packet of them, and I won't go through all of them tonight. And then I'm going to jump down to kindergartners and one of the things that kindergartners are doing. There's a book called Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hanks, I believe. And that's going to be read to the students. And the students are going to talk about the importance of treating one another with respect. Now, each student in the kindergarten is going to be given a little paper heart, and that little paper heart will represent Chrysanthemum's heart. And as the story is read, the children are told, each time you hear someone say hurtful to the little girl, crumple the heart just a little bit. And this will represent how our own hearts feel when our feelings get hurt. And at the end of the story, when the other characters say nicer things to Chrysanthemum, the students will try to smooth her heart back out. But they realize that once the damage is done and her heart does not look perfect ever again. And the moral of the activity is that the words we say to each other can leave hearts feeling sad for a long time after we say them. I just think, how powerful is that? Sometimes we don't give our little ones credit enough, but that's a lesson that's going to stay with them, and they're going to remember that. And again, we're doing this at each and every grade level in different ways. We know we're not perfect, but we really do work towards that to make sure that we're helping a generation grow up with learning how to respect themselves and others and their community as well. So that would be this week, the Week of Respect. The next one is a very different week. It's called School Violence Awareness Week. It is really the other side of the same story, though, isn't it? The more we work on respect, the less we have issues involved in School Violence Awareness Week. But that is required as well. And so to focus on that, that's another reminder for us to review the Code of Conduct, so students do realize what expectations are, and when they are not perfect or when they make mistakes, these are the consequences and this is what will happen. It's also a good time to review the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, and they need to remember what their responsibilities are in that aspect as well. Now, twice a year, I'm required as superintendent to do a report on incidents of violence, vandalism, substance abuse, and harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And this is the report that's based on anything that happened in any of our schools from January 1st to June 30th, 2015. So you can see the summary listed there, how many incidents we have for the various types of items required in the state report. The state is very specific with their definitions for each of these types of incidents, and whenever something like this happens, the individual school is required to send reports to my office, and then they're all reviewed at my office level. You can see the total for all the incidents above. We had 10 offenders during the course of the year and 3 victims. Sorry, the course of about 6 months. It wasn't a year. Below, the state also requires us to talk about what actions were taken, whether the police were notified, and if the police were notified, was there a complaint filed? Let me be really clear, and I touch on this again in a minute. There are a lot of items where if they happen in our schools, we don't have a choice. It's the law, and police have to be notified. It's not as though the school can say, oh, that's a school issue. No, if it's against the law, we're required. And again, I'll talk about that in just a minute. We also list when we have short-term suspensions or other types of discipline. When it comes to harassment, intimidation, and bullying, the state requires us to talk about what was the cause of the harassment, intimidation, or bullying, when that happens. The state law calls for a student was harassed, intimidated, or bullied because of a protected category. You can see this year we did not have many confirmed harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents from January to June, and the ones where we did, one was based on gender, mental, physical, or sensory disability, and then also another distinguishing characteristic. It can always be more than one reason. Okay? That's why you'll see 3 things listed there and only 2 instances of bullying. And then under harassment, intimidation, and bullying, also known as HIB, it talks about the different consequences that were used in those 2 incidences from last year. The state also requires us to note and submit to the state and to present to the public the mode or type of how is the harassment intimidation done. And you can see this past 6 months, it was a gesture that was part of it, and it was also verbal. The state also requires that we list the HIB incidents by school. So you will see that there were 2 incidents that were confirmed and also then affirmed by the board. One was in Washington School and one was in Edison School. HIB, or harassment, intimidation, bullying, is something we have to be always vigilant for. And every school has an anti-bullying specialist. Those names are listed because if someone does think that a child is being bullied, please reach out and report that. Or, on the other hand, if you think maybe your child doesn't have the best skills in interacting with others, and you're afraid maybe they're not treating others well, please reach out, not to report the bullying, but to tell the school you need a little bit of help with your child and a little bit of support regarding that. Not every child easily learns social skills. Some of them pick them up very easily, and others need some assistance. So if you're worried that your child needs a little bit of help with that, please let us know. And the final aspect of this presentation tonight has to do with an agreement that is signed every single year. It's called the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement between Education and Law Enforcement Officials. It's called the Memorandum of Agreement, so it's often called the MOA. And every year, for all public schools or public school districts in New Jersey, that is signed by the superintendent, the board president, the chief of police, the executive county superintendent, and also the county prosecutor. As a matter of fact, in Union County, just this last Friday, we had a county-wide meeting. The police chiefs were there, the superintendents, the county prosecutor, and the county superintendent. It's an opportunity to go over whatever is new in this agreement and training for both police chiefs and superintendents, which we can then bring back to our organizations. What this agreement does, it's a rather large document. It takes all the applicable law and puts it into one place. So when there is a problem in a school, when there is a law, there's one document you can go to, and it's clearly spelled out what is the responsibility of the school and what is the responsibility of law enforcement. Some of the topics that are included in this MOA are school safety and security plans and drills. That's an area where the law enforcement is constantly learning and improving the preparation that we have and the training that their own law enforcement officers have and that school officials have. As a matter of fact, in our case in Westfield, within the next few weeks, once again, our police officers are going to be training how to deal with various security situations that might happen in a school, and they actually use our school buildings when school is not in session so that they become familiar with the ins and outs of buildings and they get to practice the latest suggestions for how should law enforcement respond when there is an emergency in a building. So the police chief and I were just talking about that, and it's been scheduled, and it will be taking place in the next several weeks, actually, when school is not in session. Also included in the MOA are the spelling out of when do we have an obligation to report offenses when it comes to drugs. Drugs are substances that are not allowed. When we find drugs, we have to report that to police. There's not a question regarding that. And also what's appropriate when alcohol is suspected. Weapons, certainly, and when there is suspected child abuse. We don't have to be correct on that, but when there is a suspicion, a true suspicion of child abuse, that must be reported. It's not our judgment. It then goes to a different division so that someone can do a proper investigation to make sure children are safe. I also wanted to bring up two parts of the memorandum of agreement that are quite important for our teenagers especially to know. There are two laws that are related to each other. One talks about if an underage person finds himself in a situation where underage people have been drinking and somebody has clearly drunk too much and they're not well and they pass out, there's a question of alcohol poisoning. If anyone who is there, even if they themselves have been drinking, but if that person calls and reports that, because they could save a life if they do that, they are not going to be prosecuted for that. Now, that's very important for our young people to know that anyone can make a mistake, and if they're in a situation where someone has drunk too much and they're not well, that needs to be reported, and they need to reach out and call 911, and they will not be prosecuted for that, even though they've been doing the same thing. It's very similar for using drugs. So if someone finds himself in a situation and someone is not well, that should be reported as well. As long as the person reports it themselves, the person who's there reports it themselves, they're not going to be prosecuted for that either. So again, people can find themselves in a tough situation and they need to know. We're making sure that our administrators know, and it's shared in health classes and the like, and I'd ask anyone who hears this to do the same thing, because it's very important. A life could be saved. So that memorandum of agreement is important because every year we touch on topics like that and learn just a bit more to keep people safe. So again, trying to pull together quite a few state requirements into one report, that would be the superintendent report for this evening.
Thank you. Any questions? I just have one quick question. You noted that the schools will be reviewing the code of conduct and the anti-bullying bill of rights. Is there an established way to do that, or is it sort of ad hoc by school, or?
No, it can be different, actually. At the elementary level, it really is simplified quite a bit. At the intermediate level, it can be, it's usually just summarized in a large group setting, and at the high school, it would be usually done to that extent as well.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. I'd ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on September 29, 2015, and the private minutes of September 29, 2015. Could I have a second? Ginny, thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I need to abstain.
One abstention. Any
Two.
other abstentions?
Two.
Two abstentions. Thank you. With that, we'll go to personnel. In Mark's absence, I'd ask the board to note personnel items number 1 through 7. Could I have a second?
Second.
Mitch, thank you. Any comments or questions or anything you wanted to call out, Dr. Dolan?
No, I don't believe I do.
All right. Any comments or questions from the board? Dana?
Rich Matessa,
Yes.
Lisa Biegler,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Jenny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olick.
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
All right. I'm not aware of Mark leaving a report otherwise, so I'll move to facilities. We did just have a facilities meeting, so I'll take a minute and just summarize what we did. The primary purpose of the meeting was to discuss our communications and clock system that will be included in the proposed bond. Our technology team showed us a digital system that was not only superior to what we have now, but more cost-effective than what we have now, which included a two-way communication system, the clock, and other digital aspects that seemed appropriate for the various schools. So we're going to continue to gather information on that and more pricing information but the initial information, as we understood it, was very favorable compared to what we thought the cost might be. And so we look forward to getting more information on that from Dana as the weeks go by. A second issue, there was a request from Roosevelt to close the fields with gates and lock the gates during the evening hours because of people walking their dogs on the field or letting their dogs run on the field. We're going to ask the town to help us enforce the rules against walking dogs on the field, and to a large extent that's common sense. When you have kids in a field or playground, just please, residents, don't walk your dogs or let your dogs run loose on the fields. So we'll try it that way first rather than locking the gate to everybody. We did have a request for porta-johns at Roosevelt and Elm Street schools. It's not a new request, but the committee did get more information on what is being requested and how it would be set back from the street and surrounded by lattice work so that it's not obtrusive. And we did give the okay to move forward on that, provided it is set back and surrounded by lattice work. We had a request by a non-school third party to use lights at Keeler in the event their sporting event runs over into the night. We denied that request. As people may know from our last meeting, we reviewed the Keeler Light pilot, and one of our recommendations was that there are no games under the lights at Keeler, but even to the extent a game began during daylight hours, we won't allow lights to be used to finish the game unless it's a school-sponsored activity that was scheduled to be completed during daylight hours. So this didn't fit that characteristic, and we did deny that request. Two other items, we are proceeding with the security cameras at Keeler. That also came up last week. And Mike Morris will get us the cost of shrubs at Keeler. That also came up last week as something we'd like to think about. October is a good time to plant shrubs. The biggest issue, though, for us is watering the shrubs, at least for the first couple of months. We would plant things that were self-sustaining, but with new plantings, we just need to figure out the way to water so that we don't lose what we do plant. So that's a quick summary of the facilities meeting, and that was all I had for the report. Dana, you didn't have any other items for facilities?
No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right, that's it for facilities. With that, I'd ask long-range planning. Ginny, any report tonight?
No report.
All right, thank you. We'll go to policies. Lucy?
Yes, a few things. Before I ask the board to approve the homework policy, there was a small little change to number 6, if you all have your policies out. Just a little wording detail. Instead of teachers should assist parents or legal guardians by suggesting ways in which they can help a pupil carry out homework assignments, it's asked to change it to as necessary. Teachers should assist parents or legal guardians by suggesting ways in which they can support a pupil to carry out homework assignments. Anyone have any questions on that? Okay, if I can have a second. Mitch? Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Lucy Biegler,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Jenny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Okay, and if I would like to have the board approve the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement that Dr. Dolan just went over between education and law enforcement officials for the 15-16 school year. Can I have a second? Jenny? Dana?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Lucy Biegler,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Jenny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
And one last item, if I could have the board approve the affirmed decision of superintendent's HIB incident 16E01 for the reasons set forth therein. Second, Jenny?
Rich Matesic,
Yes.
Lucy Biegler,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Jenny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Oleg,
I have to abstain.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Also abstain on that.
Anything else, Lucy?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and program. Gretchen?
Yes, I would like to ask the board to consider curriculum item number 1, the school nursing plan. Can I have a second? The plan, which is an annual plan that has to be approved by the board, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a detailed school nursing plan setting forth guidelines that address the vital work that our nurses do. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Dana.
Rich Matheson.
Yes.
Lucy Beeler.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Lineheart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
And then I'd like to ask the board to consider curriculum item 2. Can I have a second? Jenny, thank you. Y'all had the district field trips. I think this is the conferences.
right,
Yeah, the district field trips were attached. This is the
No,
conference,
that's
right, yeah.
conference,
So does anybody have any questions, conversation about that? Okay, Dana?
Rich Matheson.
Yes.
Lucy Beeler.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Lineheart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
We have a meeting Thursday. We're pushing it to 9:30, so we will see you guys then. Nothing further.
All right. With that, we'll move to finance. Is this a finance item?
Yes, it's a,
Dana, where's the administrative item number,
It's
memo
number-
5?
It's in number 4. It goes with number 4 on finance,
Okay, thanks.
in addition to 4.
So in Mark's absence, I'll ask the board to consider finance motions 1 through 7, noting that item 4 is as revised with administrative number 5 that's on the table. Have a second? Jenny, thank you. Before we go any further on it, I do want to just call out items number 5, the acceptance of a gift of an Artley Resonite clarinet valued at $200 for Miss Jackie Burns. Item 6, the acceptance of a gift of $600 from the Westfield Coalition of the Arts to purchase a Yamaha digital keyboard for the Roosevelt Intermediate School Band. And item number 7, accepting a gift of $330 from the Westfield Coalition of Arts to fund a workshop for a high school art teacher at Peters Valley School of Craft. And we certainly appreciate all of those gifts. Thank you very much.
And if I could?
Yeah, please.
And finance number 2 is asking for the board's approval on the most recent, the CUSAC documentation. The board has copies of that. Everything was reviewed. The state actually has a great deal of the information that's now required in CUSAC already in their hands digitally, but everything was reviewed and being presented. This is a year where we're not getting the full state coming in to monitor, but we are required to complete this documentation and submit it to the state.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Rich Matheson.
Yes.
Lucy Beeler.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Lineheart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Oley.
Yes.
Peggy Astor.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
All right, I'm not aware of Mark leaving any other report. With that, we'll go to legislation. Brendan, any report?
No report this week.
Thank you. Technology, Mitch, any report?
Just a brief report. I sent notes from our meeting on the 25th and just thought I'd give a quick update for folks that it was a very busy summer in the technology world as Edison and Roosevelt, received everything that the high school had received the summer before. Just as an example, if you look up, you see one of the Wi-Fi stations here, the bases, and they're working very, very well from what I'm hearing at Edison and Roosevelt. I know there were some issues initially with the printers, but it was all worked out. So far everything is going really well there. And in fact, some money was saved in the project, and their technology committee is looking at a number of things such as Wi-Fi and internet access at the field house, the ability to wire the press box, which potentially will give us the ability to live stream graduation. So that is something that is being discussed, and stay tuned for more as we move on throughout the year. They're piloting right now in the technology department the whole concept of virtual desktop and applications, and we'll be talking more about that as we go on. And also we heard from our master technology teachers and what's happening in the curriculum side, and some of the pilots that are happening in the high school, especially with the BYOD, the kind of the bring your own device. And they've actually done some surveys, which I thought were not surprising in the high school. And they found that something about, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, something was over 90% or 95% were actually iPhones that were brought to the high school as devices. So that that is all being addressed and piloted, and It's currently available to all staff members district-wide, and we'll be continuing to work on that throughout the year. Our goal is obviously to get technology to a place where collaboration is possible, and that's something that Mr. Pinero and many of the folks throughout the schools are working very, very hard on, and I think we're really excited that we now have the infrastructure in the elementary schools, in the middle schools, in the high school, in the middle schools, and look forward to a year from now to be talking about the infrastructure in the elementary school. So things are proceeding well, and I think we have another meeting in a few weeks and report back on that.
Terrific. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I noticed you're right about the number of pilots. I feel like when I went to back to school night, everybody was talking about, oh, we're piloting this, we're piloting that. So how is that information filtered by at the end of the year? Because I imagine most of them are successful, but there has to be some misses, hits and misses. And so how is it everything, are they making a report back to you, Paul, and then we're kind of disseminating that information about what's working and what's not working? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. So good evening. With regard to some of the pilots that we're doing in technology, I think a big distinction in that, maybe as some other pilots, is that we need to take it, sometimes step by step with certain areas. For example, bring your own device to see that the system can handle it, and and teachers are prepared to do it, and all that kind of thing. So it's been that step by step approach. So as a result, I do supervise the master tech teachers, so I'm in regular contact with them. So I'll be able to report out to the tech committee and to Dr. Dolan. Of course, Dr. Dolan and I, if not this week, next week, are going over to see the high school pilots, which are Chromebook pilots. That's really like a one-to-one initiative. So I think a formal presentation later on in the year would be a great idea, so that we can all review the things that we've learned from it. We've learned a lot just about what devices students would bring in and what they would make use of, and just how powerful a phone actually can be.
Right.
We're learning a lot. I think bringing all that together for a formal presentation, and maybe bring some of the other folks in as well, would be a great idea. So we can do that. But along the way, we'll keep the technology committee apprised.
The plan is definitely to have a presentation, probably in March, somewhere in that range.
great.
And Janine and Adam will lead the way, just as they did last spring with that. So that is definitely on the agenda.
Great.
Great. Anything else, Mitch?
No, that's great.
Any other
That's it.
questions?
Any questions?
All right, then I would ask the board to note the notes for the record, and then move to any unfinished business. Any new business? Any liaison reports? Yes.
So the town rec committee met last night, and there's two things that I just want to report back on. One, they reviewed the report that the Facilities Commission did on Keeler Field. Very complimentary about that. We
Great.
passed out copies of that. They thought it was very comprehensive and very helpful. And the second thing is they are still continuing to explore the idea of turfing some of the fields at Tamaqua, possibly putting lights on there. As we describe it, we say it's a second inning of a 9-inning ball game, so it's still very preliminary, but that continues to move forward.
Terrific, thank you. Any other liaison reports?
I have one report, and I apologize, I ran out of the house very quickly early tonight, and I didn't bring my notes. But I did attend the Garden State Coalition meeting, I believe it was last week. Once again, it was an organizational meeting, and I will bring them next time we have a meeting. They published the goals and objectives for this coming school year, and you guys can review them. If you have any comments or additions, subtractions, so forth, you can give them back to me. And also the other thing is, for anybody who knows, Lynn Strickland, who has been the head of Garden State Coalition for a very long time, is retiring. She's retiring a little sooner than they had expected, so they are beginning the search for a new director of the Garden State Coalition.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you for those reports. I will now recognize the public for questions and/or comments on any item. All right, seeing no one come to the podium, We have a private session.
We do.
I would ask the board to consider the following resolutions. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing legal matters rendered confidential by state and federal law. As further resolved that any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussions will be made public as soon as practicable. I have a second. Jenny, thank you. All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. We will move to private session. Thank you.
Yeah, I think.